That's it. This is not there also.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Amudhan. I am part of a group called Marupakkam, and we are doing this online film streaming every week since the lockdown was started in April. And this week we started our weekly online screening around end of April, and today this week is the 25th week.
Sometimes the boundaries between the board
Film screening.
have tended to get blurred. So there it creates problems.
Can I explain? It's a 25th Silver Jubilee film screening. This week we are showing Nishtha Jain's At My Doorstep documentary, and we started on Friday at 6 o'clock evening. And this film will be on till tomorrow evening 6 o'clock. And as part of this online film screening, we also have an interaction with the filmmaker on every Sunday. So thanks to the lockdown and thanks to the new reality, we have been doing this online film screening, and the support has been tremendous. We're getting viewership, and we're getting contacts from all kinds of people from all parts of the world. And so I thank Nishtha Jain for sharing her film. I thank Nishtha for joining the discussion. So let me, Nishtha, are you here? Can you hear me? Nishtha?
I'm Bharti, but I can't see you. I mean, I can't see myself. What do I have to do?
Put on the camera.
Okay.
Start video.
Yes. So, Nishtha,
The session will be little very informal and, as you said, very intimate, because we are a small group. To start with, I'll ask a few questions to Nishtha to start the discussion, and then others can join. I'll invite everybody to ask or comment. To begin with, let me ask Nishtha about her particularly this film, and how did she come up with this idea, and if you can recall the times in which she conceived the idea and the times in which she developed the idea and produced the film.
Right. Thanks. I just want to say hello to everyone, and thanks for watching the film and making time to be here today. So I shot this film in 2007, 2006 and 2007. I was already making. I had made another film called Lakshmi and Me, and Lakshmi and Me was a film about a domestic worker, a young domestic worker, 21-year-old girl who was not only working part-time in my house, but in 9 other apartments in my colony. And when I was making this film, I'd made this film, and it was focused on Lakshmi, but I realized that it's not just Lakshmi, it's also a whole lot of people who service, the apartment buildings. And all these people are kind of invisible workers around us. And so I said that Lakshmi is only one part of the reality. To make that reality a bit more multidimensional, I thought it'd be very important to look at how men come into cities as migrant workers and what is their reality. Because so this is how the film followed. And I didn't, although this is about my doorstep, I also, like, treatment wise, I didn't want to be part of the film. Like, I was very much part of the film in Lakshmi and Me. I really wanted to see it, hear their point of view and not so much from my point of view. So of course it's a point of view film. It's very much directorial, but I felt that they have to have the space. So that's how the film began. So I really see it as the other dimension of Lakshmi and Me, and a very important dimension.
Uh, uh, if you can, it will be great if you can explain like how you conceive a film, how you make a film. What is the, like your film philosophy when you're making a film? What actually triggers you to make a film, and what actually what you really could try to give an convey through your film, as a film per se.
I think through this, I mean, of course, there is always a very different starting point for each project, and for this project, I think the idea was of how a certain section of society is invisibilized, by the rest, while they are actually forming the foundation. They are actually laboring to make our lives comfortable, but they are the ones who are getting invisibilized. So I first wanted to give these people the time of my day. And so how was I going to do it? And that was an important question. Like, how would I treat the film? I could just go and interview the people, and the film has a lot of interviews, but I still was looking for some kind of a device. And I said, and it was interesting because one night I came across Ghayal, Dayanand Mishra, who's the main character of this film, and then I heard him reciting poetry to his fellow watchmen. And that's how I got the idea that a lot of people also come. I mean, they may be working as watchmen, but they also have a lot of dream and aspirations, and a lot of people come to this film city, and they come with those dreams. So I said, so he told me that he writes his autobiography and he's written all this. So I said, can you convert it into, like, as if it were a film? Can you convert it? Can you see it as scenes? Can you write a script? And then it was interesting that Dayanand Mishra also had a pen name, in the sense he called himself Ghayal, the injured. And as a writer, he called himself Ghayal or injured. So I said, okay, as Ghayal, please write your autobiography, but in form of a script. So that was the device I used in this film, where he's reading out scenes. And it became like kind of an interesting device. But I also still interviewed a lot of people around me, but largely the film is observational, participatory, observational in nature. So I feel like, your question, Amudan, although I can't see you, you're just like black right now. But in terms of how do you approach like each film, I think it's really the subject. Like, what do you want to say? What do you want to say through the film, that I decide to use? Okay, I think I should use this kind of treatment. I don't impose a form. I let the form emerge from what I want to say.
Hmm.
So, yeah, and I feel like it's important to extend oneself. Like, okay, this is what I want to say, but how creatively you want to say it. So it's very important to do that, because in documentary it can be very easy to just interview people, but I think one needs to go a step further to see how what can we do, because we have this creative medium. We can do so much. So I don't want to be bound by classic documentary, which is just interviews, talking heads, and some A roll, B roll. So, how can I push this? And so with every new film, I try to push this boundary. I mean, I try. I don't know whether uh, you know, I succeed to some extent. I fail, but that doesn't matter. It's all just a form of expression.
Yeah, I'm actually curious about that only. Two things I want to ask. One, like as you said, you do not want to stick to restrict yourselves to a classic documentary form. Um, so you there's an element of directing, quote unquote, happen in the film. People are some kind of a directing. The people directing the characters. So, are you trying to slightly break away from the documentary form, and are you trying to bring in the fiction part into it? Not necessarily fiction part per se, but there's a kind of a fluidity in the film, or in all your films. There's some kind of enactment kind of a thing is there. Some kind of a fictional part is there. So in all your films, there is a direction part, So how would you, when you're making a film, how will you design the film? That's one part. The other part, when you are selecting the quote unquote um, um, scenes, or when you are capturing things, moments, when you're capturing those moments, how do you decide those moments? What actually guides you when you decide, when you think these moments are, interesting for you? Like I like, for example, I choose a particular way of style in choosing the moments. So how would you choose the moments? When you're choosing a moment, how do you think, how do you decide that it will be useful for your film? Or it is interesting for?
You're talking, you see, one thing is like one thing is what you decide to choose, what you decide to shoot, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is what you decide to keep in the film, right? So there are two processes, two levels of, first you decide, okay, this is what I want to, at paper, at the level of paper. And I feel all these three stages are important. One is the conception, and you have to keep on revising the conception of your film, because the reality will also give you many ideas. And then you have the footage, and you forget about, I mean, for a moment, how you started out, because the footage then becomes your master. It will guide you, it will tell you what it is. So when you're shooting, it's really important to be open, to be flexible, and to see, okay, you had certain ideas, but the reality is going to give you so much more. That's my master. So we have to become like seers. Like we need to see. One thing is looking and one thing is seeing, like really deep seeing, like deeply seeing, deeply hearing, right? And I think that's a continuous process in one's work, that deep listening to people, seeing things. So being aware, being very present at that time. So that is what you bring in your shooting. Then during editing, it's a different process. During editing, I follow two principles. I follow either emotion, one, the story that I'm going to say, and two, I follow energy. So like, what is the energy? Because I feel that the energy is very important. With every cut, am I multiplying the energy? Am I saying something? Every cut is important, it has to be economical. And so while I'm not like a trained editor or something, I've been sometimes, because of lack of budget, I've edited my own films. Sometimes I feel it would have been very nice if there was somebody else, another set of eyes to make it better or something. But in another way, it is also a very direct expression of what I feel. Like, it's like molding your own thing, like, like an artist does painting. So it's a very direct flow from me to to the end product. So in a way, there is that as well. But I feel energy is very important for me. And it's very important to cut with, so that that energy doesn't go. And I mean, so these are all like tools that we work with, ideas that we work with. And it's, I think it's very good for me, much more than any external thing. And flow for me is not that important as energy. So I like to make a, only energy can catch your attention, because flow can come with music, and you can just like flow with it. I'm not interested in that flow. I want emotion to be present at all the time. So that's how I work. Yeah.
Mm.
I want to be feeling something. I don't want to be dulled. I want to feel something. I want to think. I want I want that these two things to happen with every cut.
Mm. Regarding the first question, fiction and non-fiction, or enacting or directing, what is that? Do you follow in all your films? I could see even in the Pink Women film I could see that, kind
See,
of.
what I want to say is, I never, ever, ever, ever direct my protagonists. I never, very rarely do I tell them to do anything. Like, I follow them. Not, and I think even if I did ask them to do things, it would be like I asked Ghayal. but then I do it in a way that I'm making it clear that this is what we are doing and that we are doing this story. But otherwise, I don't direct, but I think it's also okay to direct, because I feel I don't believe in this difference between documentary and film and reality. I feel that what we are trying to deal with is trying to tell something. So you use all kinds of tools, whatever, as long as you're being as long as you're being honest, I feel, even more than authentic, I feel authenticity is important, but I think honesty is also important, very, very important, honesty. So like, as long as you're being honest in terms of telling the story, you use you can do whatever. Like I really like, I think Godard said this like 50 years ago, that a, a good fiction tries to be like a documentary, and a good documentary feels like a fiction film. And so I really feel that there is no difference, as long as these are just these, you can be using reality to mold your story, or you can use actors to tell your story. It's not important. These forms and these classifications are very external. It's just about the material that you're using.
Hmm.
I'm using material of interviews, or reality, and some people are using the material of writing and then making people act. So it comes to the same. I feel like, as long as it's able to create that emotional space and thinking space, it's just that you're reaching somewhere through another route. that's
Hmm.
that's all.
Hmm.
So, Nishtha, this is Vijay. I just wanted to build on that last question. What struck me watching this film was and first of all, congratulations on a fabulous film. Um, and I really do think you made the invisible very visible. One got under the surface, but I was just very curious about how the people you were filming sort of participated with you in the creation of this film. Clearly, the guy who's writing poetry is a collaborator in some ways, but in some ways, so are the others. And they're sharing a part of their lives. Some of them are more self-conscious of being on film than others. They're a little worried about how they're going to be seen by others, by their own village. And so I'm just asking that because in some ways, the creative process is not just top-down, director does this. It's also they are presenting a version of themselves. Some of them are sharing more of themselves than others, and they have to make those decisions as well. So I was just wondering how you collaborated on almost gaining their trust for them to be able to share as much as they did, because some of them I felt were exposing themselves almost to the point of being confessing their shame in a way. So
I think a lot of it has to do with my cinematographer that I work with, Rakesh Haridas. And like, in the very first frame of the film, he establishes he's following this boy, and there's a recognition from the boy. So we are actually seeing that moment when the process starts, you know. And so there is like a tacit understanding between the boy and the crew. They've accepted that something is happening. I've asked, can I shoot you? And then the relationship also develops while filming. It's so important. How I think it's not something that you can establish while filming, but it's also how you are. These are people that I've known, I've interacted with. You cannot come from outside and just say, okay, now I'm going to take up the camera and start shooting. These are people that I've interacted over the years, like known them for several years before I started shooting with them. So they know who I am. They understand. I tell them the process before we start, shooting, and then um, and Ravi, for example, knew him for several years, and the way and I love the part that he questions me, and is able to open out so beautifully, to me. But the other thing I also wanted to say, if you notice, all the interviews, a lot of the talking portions are on the rooftops. Uh, so because that's where we could be like protected and they could feel safe, because we could not really do. So every time I started shooting this film, somebody or the other in the housing society would complain about us. Sometimes they even called the police on us. And the housing society just told me. And at one point, that's why the film took long. It one time just completely stopped. Like, what are you doing? And every time I would be out there with the camera, people would say, please, please don't use that scene. I mean, I don't want to be seen in this film, etc. Like, it could be just shooting Sonu at the gate, opening and closing, and if somebody's car came in, they would say, who the hell are you and why are you filming? Stop it, we don't want to be part of this film. And I would explain to them, but this was like such a difficult film to do. It was much easier to shoot Gulabi Gang, but here people are very protective of their rights. They don't want to be seen in a certain, and it's fine, and I understand that they can have issues with it. But even when I try to explain to them that this is about the lives of the workers, etc., they would say, no, we don't care, we don't want to be part of this film. So that's why I was also shooting them. It's very important, the spaces that we shoot them. It's also important that I could not, there was no place where I could actually shoot Ghayal, and it was, so I would have to, take him again, to a railway station or something, and, enact these places, put him outside, because the housing society space does not, there is no space where people can actually sit openly and tell their stories. And that, I think, is a very interesting commentary as well, in terms of how the film, looks. But it works for me aesthetically. It works for me because you also see these individuals against these huge, the backdrop, the horizon just filled with really tall buildings, and you can imagine how many people are servicing this and how many people are made invisible every day by servicing the people. So I don't know if I answered your question. Did I get lost?
No, I think you answered it, but added to the answer.
Okay.
Hi, Nishtha, can I ask you a question?
Gautam, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, that's right. Hi. Sorry, my video is off because I have a poor connection. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah,
Yes,
I can
yes.
hear you. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. So I have many things to apologize for. Firstly, for coming late. You may have already addressed this. And also, the big thing is I haven't watched the film. So that is really crazy. I plan to watch it tonight. But my question is a more general one about how you go about the whole editing process with your editor. And I'm sure it's different for different films. But maybe you could just give the example of this film, which I shall see this evening. Is it... specifically, do you arrive at a structure at some point? What are the kind of discussions with the editor? What is, I don't know, anything that you want to say about the editing process?
Gautam, I edited the film myself. So yeah, there was...
Okay. But maybe some other then?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess, as I said earlier in the day, that a lot of my films I had to edit myself because of lack of funding. And I really, with some films especially, I feel that a set of different set of eyes would have really helped the film, not only to make it sharper, but also like I mean, maybe better or something, because you've shot your film, you've conceived your film, then you're editing your film. So that's one thing. So but I can talk about a couple of films that I worked with other editors, like Gulabi Gang. I worked with Arjun Gaurisaria, and Lakshmi and Me, in which I worked with a Danish editor and then edited it myself. See, I feel that in documentary, the film gets written at the editing table, right? So the director cannot like fully give control. And it's very important that the director is present, in terms of that the film has to be expressed somehow, has to be very present in the editing process. So, for example, in Gulabi Gang, what happened was, it's also very important that you watch all the rushes together with the editor, and that's really the most important part, because as you're watching the rushes, you're talking about your feeling about the rushes, and also to see if the editor is responding to the same thing as you are, right? That's very important. And of course, the editor can have uh, different different views, add to it, but as long as you are on the same page, or actually additions are always good. That editor has to bring in value addition, like another perspective. So I chose, and it's very important to choose the editor very well. I chose Arjun for Gulabi Gang because I felt I needed a non-judgmental person. I needed somebody who would not be judgmental of this woman and this character, and who would be embracing the different sides, because that's how I like to make my films. So, and I think Arjun did such a fabulous job in that sense, and also in that film, it was very important that somebody who knew the language, who understands politics, and so many times I didn't understand something, but he understood it because it was close to Marwari and he could understand certain references. So it was very important to have somebody like, open out the material to you in that way, and somebody who's embracing it. Because sometimes I feel like I can bring some self-hate into the material and be very critical of it. And you need someone with different eyes to say, this is okay, this is all right, this is lovely, and this is so wonderful. So, to reassure you, because yeah, self-criticality can be quite paralyzing also. And I've done that to myself, even with this material, with At My Doorstep, and I had to spend a little time away from it to actually start accepting the nature of it, and I think that is very important. That's how the editor who comes in has to also make you accept, what's and all, like the bad and the good part,
Yeah.
this brings in a lot of acceptance and then shape the story with you. Gautam, are you there? I can't see you.
Yes, yes, very much so. I know. I apologize, and I haven't been acknowledging by audio because.
No, no, that's fine. So I feel that I already addressed this earlier. I don't know if you missed it, but for me, the energy in editing is very important.
Yeah,
Energy and keeping the emotion. Those are my two guiding. Of course, telling the story, but how do you tell a story? That's very important. The energy, maintaining the energy, developing it, multiplying on it.
Thank you, Nishtha. Thank you, Gautam. So,
taking you away from this film.
Sorry. Okay. Now, Gautam, you want to ask?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Gautam.
Hi, Bharti.
So let me just take the liberty of inviting one by one, so that we can have everybody's participation, because we are a small group. We have the luxury of inviting everybody. So can I invite Ms. Sarika?
Hello. Hi, I'm Sarika here. Can
Yes.
you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. So hi, Nishtha. I watched the movie. I really loved it. I think at some point I was very emotional, because they have so much of how to say, like, their life is so difficult, but they never fail to put a smile on their own face. That was actually a bit. It really took me away. Like, I really felt very sad about it. But my question to you will be, when you engaged with them to make this film, did they have any kind of hope that you might bring some change to their lives? So how did they take that part?
I think when one thing is that people share their stories with you, and they also hope that you can become a catalyst. But I'm just trying to remember. For Ghayal, this became a very interesting journey for Ghayal. He kept on losing jobs, so he returned to Jharkhand, to his home, and then he started going around showing this film, in video parlor. So he would hold screening. So he became my messenger. He himself was a messenger in the film. So for a year or two, and I had to keep on sending him DVDs. Madam, ye DVD, he would say, ye kharab ho gaya hai, ek aur bhej dijiye. So he kept on holding screenings of the film in Jharkhand. And it would get written about in those local newspapers, and then he would send me, like a cutting of a local newspaper. And I felt that because I had not been able to, the film, the nature of it is such that no festivals really, not a single festival in India selected this film except Kerala in a non-competitive section. So it was very difficult to really reach this film out. उस समय तो YouTube वगैरह भी नहीं था. मतलब इतना हम लोग उस पे नहीं डालते थे or whatever. And so he actually reached the film to a lot of people. In the film itself, you see him in a video parlor in Bombay. So those kind of video parlors are there like all over. And so he would go there. And so maybe like 10, 20 people would come. And then he would also, share what they felt about the film and stuff like that. So that became like a very interesting twist. And I actually wanted to go there and shoot that because he is the character in a film telling a story and then he's doing it. But then I was planning to do it and then he suddenly dropped out of my life. Like his phone number never worked. I sent him letters and I don't know. I still try to, I don't know what happened. He dropped out of my life. But I don't know whether they really think that a film can change. But I think it's also a very important process that you can share your story. That everybody's story is valid. And that I think is a very important what should validation that your story is important. And I think that's what also these films do in a way. They cannot change because how can a film change? How can really, people, but I know one thing, that whoever sees these two films, Lakshmi and Me and At My Doorstep, personally I've seen, like, the people that I know, their attitudes have changed towards workers. I've seen that change in my life. I've seen people change. So I just know that the films have the power to do that.
That's great.
Whether I feel you cannot remain untouched. Once you see this, your attitude will change towards the people. Like, they are no longer invisible. You cannot make them invisible anymore. So it happens naturally, and these are, in that sense, these films kind of get under your skin in a way.
Purva, I want that.
Right.
And sorry, one last thing. Oh, sorry.
No,
No,
go ahead. Sorry.
Go on.
Sure.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, all right. Another thing is, how was their reaction when you were like with the camera and going and taking them? Like were they feeling like what kind of participation were they giving? Like, were they shy? Were they okay to say their story, or how was it? How was the whole process?
No. Nobody was shy, except I made it a little difficult for Ghayal, because he had to remember his own lines and say it. One thing is speaking, and the other thing is remembering the lines and saying it. Like, for example, at the rail, we are not allowed to shoot on railway stations, right? In Bombay, you would have to have lakhs of rupees, get permission. So we had to do it surreptitiously, like, train is coming, go to him, he has to say his lines, and out. And so he's not an actor.
Okay.
So in that sense, kind of, that was a little bit difficult, realizing that he had to say so many lines, so we'd make it simpler. But it was his own lines, it was his own thing that he's saying, but I wanted to say it in the form of like a scene, Drishya number 11, kya hua, So he has to speak in third person.
Okay.
Like, right? And otherwise he could say, mere saath ye hua, or main so raha tha. That would be much easier. But because he had to speak in third person, because it was part of the script, it became a little difficult. I realized that he's not an actor. But still, so you can see his hesitations and all that, or, very much that he's not an actor. But they were not shy telling their stories. No.
Thanks a lot, Nishtha. I loved it. I'm going to watch it another round before it ends tomorrow. Yeah, thanks for making this film. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pura, please go ahead, Pura.
Nishtha, I'm loving the film. I'm actually watching it. I wasn't planning on joining this, but I started watching the film and I fell in love with the first 10 minutes and I said, I have to get onto this call. So, so I had questions regarding the permissions because, and I know you've already addressed some of them, but that's the first thing that hit me. Did you ask for a location release from the society? How were people responding to shooting and cameras and boom mics? I'm sure really is a very intimidating scene for everyone. If you could just like talk a little more about the hurdles that you faced, and did you get release forms signed from you know the owners who were in the film?
Right. I mean, the release forms in India, like we do documentaries, the moment you sign a release forms are basically meant when you are going to show it on a television network, right? And so I remember in Lakshmi and me, there was an oral understanding. We had been shooting the film for 2 years, and then I got a funding from ITVS, and then I had to go to Lakshmi's family and take the release letters. Before that, we hadn't done that. We were not making films for television networks. So everything is in English. So I remember Smriti, my partner and producer of that film, she went there and she read that out and English and translated it. And they were what's the word? They were very intimidated because all this shooting had happened for 2 years. We were like family, and now suddenly like we had to be officious and legal and read out that, oh, we participated, and then they just felt, oh my god, what did we get into, right? And so it was a weird moment. We should have actually recorded it because it makes them feel kind of suspicious of you कि क्या है ये एकदम से ऐसे क्यों हो गया है, why did we do wrong, did we part, all kind of thing comes into question. So I feel that release letters in that way, the film that I was shooting the film recently while I was in Austin, and there, even if you go and shoot in a space, you have to get the release letter signed. So they are much more used to that process. But here, and they can read what's written in, but here, if the people don't speak English and you have to translate it, I think that there's another level of complication that comes in, or a kind of a twist which can make people insecure as well. But nonetheless, that has to be done. So for this film, we had to take permission from housing societies, not only just my housing society, but we were also shooting in my friend Smriti's housing society. But we got the permission from the housing society, but it didn't mean that we had the permission from like every member. Like this housing society I'm living in, there are 1,200 apartments. If I just shoot something here, I have to get permission of everyone. It's impossible. That's why it's impossible to shoot. So this film happened also in a kind of an innocent period, I feel. So at one time when we were following that boy, that laundry boy, with his portly and going house to house, I remember one woman freaked out and called the police, and she says, "Who the hell are you? I'm going to call the police, etc." And I was like, okay, that was the end of filming there in that building. Then people stopped us in my building. So the film, it was just, I was like, what the heck? I can't. This is like the most difficult film to shoot. And it would seem like the simplest film to shoot because this is your space. This is where you live. This is the people that you're watching every day. But why cannot you shoot it? And I just explained it, so I'm kind of repeating myself here. So yeah, it was difficult. But we had to explain to each and everyone what we are doing. So it was very difficult. And so why are you showing their point of view only? Why not our point of view? But I didn't want to show their point of view.
Right.
I just wanted to show their point of view. because their point of view can be seen in their lives. What is your point of view? I don't want to know, because how these people are leading their lives can be seen. I just want to hear from them. I'm not doing some, okay, they have to say this, and I don't want to present two sides of the story. No, I'm not interested in two sides of the story. This was not a balancing act. This is just a story of people's lives and never get told, never get accounted for, and how much we are responsible for it. So for me, this is the idea that I explored in Lakshmi and Me. Like, often you see people talk really big, like even communists and leftists, people talk big, but in their house, there will be a person who's getting exploited. So it's like turning the mirror around. You want to show the society the mirror of, look how many people are exploited, workers, industrial workers, ये वो, लेकिन आपके घर में भी तो एक आदमी है, उसके बारे में तो आपने नहीं सोचा है. So it was basically turning the mirror on them. This film is not about the workers. It is them talking about us.
Yeah, absolutely. And were you in a situation where you also had to delete footage because things were getting ugly, or
So you don't
did
see
you have?
too many people. So the only time they allowed me to shoot was the what is that, Independence Day, because they're proud of that, right? So that was the only time I got after they stopped me shooting, I said, I really want to shoot the Independence Day. They allowed me to shoot. I got 2 extra days because of that, because still Independence Day ka shooting ka permission thoda extend ho gaya. So I could shoot a couple of more sequences. But yeah, so yeah, this was difficult. And who would imagine that a film like this is difficult? It's everyday life. But today, when I was watching it, like just a few days before I was putting it on Vimeo, I started watching the film again, and I said, it's impossible to do a film like this.
I think the easier ones turn out to be the more difficult ones. Yeah, is what I think. Yes, from my experience as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's such an intimate look into our the middle class lives, and how complicit they are in everything.
Thank you.
Collective.
Okay. Can I invite Roshni?
Hello.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, Roshni.
Thank you for the film. So I didn't quite get to finish it, unfortunately, but I saw about 3/4 of it, I think, before the meeting came up, and I really did want to hear what you had to say about it. I do agree with what someone previously mentioned, that I felt that some of it was staged. I think probably that was the device that you used about having him present it as a screenplay, which I thought was a very interesting device. But why did you decide to do it like that instead of just have him read from his autobiography?
Because I wanted to discover this idea of the dream city. Bombay is also a dream city for a lot of people, and it's a film city, and because a lot of people say, "Humko bhi hero banna," like, I mean, the impossibility of becoming a hero, but a lot of people carry that in themselves. So I think it's important to see the end of the film, because of if you should finish watching, because that makes it very
Yes, I
clear.
will.
That makes it very clear as to when people come to this, to this city. It's also like there is somewhere they think about these old characters also in movies, who came to struggle in a city, and there would be a life another day. There would be life maybe, and they give themselves 5 years, 10 years to realize that dream of being in the city. And I think that's what keeps on going. Also, a certain narrative of Bombay cinema, which has gone out and shows no workers in it. So I was trying to weave in those two things, because this is as much a film about Bombay as it is Bombay as a city, a film city, a dream city, where maybe there are possibilities of having another kind of life. And there is, it does happen. It does open out certain, even if your life is struggle, it does open out a certain way of looking at life and struggle. So that's the idea that I was playing with. And it is staged. It is staged. He is reading it out, as I just said, that he also had difficulty remembering those lines because he's not an actor, even though the lines are written by him.
Thank you. Uh, can I invite Milind Chapra?
Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Nishtha Ji.
Hi.
I'm from SPS Community Media. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good.
So,
We've
I
met before, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You have seen Lakshmi and
Yeah.
yeah. So, I just wanted to ask you. Matlab, I'm in the process of shooting my first film right now. So, there are various challenges that I've been facing, and I just reiterating one challenge that I've been facing. Did you ever feel, matlab, you chose to tell stories, such intimate stories of people who were different from your uh, economic or uh, from your strata of the society? So, did you ever feel that you were losing grasp of a character's arc, or more scaring that and than that someone who you initially wanted to shoot a lot, or you thought that this person might become an interesting character in my film, started maybe running away from you and your camera, and did that ever happen to you?
Acha. No, it can happen. I know what you're trying to say. It can happen many times. Your characters become hostile in a way or do not want to participate in your film. It happens all the time. It happened with me in Lakshmi and me. Right in the middle of the film, she just vanished. She didn't just vanish from the film, she vanished from her home. She ran away, she eloped. So, I mean, it can happen. And also shooting with people, it's over a long period of time, they can get tired of it. Like, what are you trying to show? Like, bahut ho gaya. And in that sense, I mean, Ghayal was a very, very indulgent, very much a participant, co-author of the film, right? And Sonu was also very, all of the other characters except who did I have trouble with? Not not so much. I think the laundry people were also very, 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 like they were completely cooperative. They loved it. So I think the delivery boys, in a way, sometimes, they were like, "Acha, abhi aap jaiyega, nahi to ye sab hamare grahak bhag jayenge," or whatever. That sort of a thing. Like, don't stop the work. The commerce should not stop. But otherwise, I did not have, except that Ghayal kept on vanishing. He would lose his job, his number would change. So sometimes I would have to write a letter to his village, and his father would get in touch that matter, like Nishtha is trying to get in touch with you. Then he will come back into my life. And then I said, like, it's just impossible to shoot with this person. And so let's just do it at one go. Let him tell his story, as just so that, we can shoot this at one point of like stretch of a time. Because to follow him in his different jobs, sometimes he would get a job as a watchman in in a hotel, or sometimes in this building, and then they would he would lose his job again. And I don't know why he kept on losing his job. There was, maybe he was doing something wrong. I mean, maybe I don't know what he was doing, but he kept on losing his jobs. So it was very difficult to keep with him or do any kind of realistic shooting with him. So we said that might as well, why don't you put your story? It is there. It is there. I had seen, he had given me his autobiography, all his writings he had given me. So I said, now let's turn it into scenes so that I can just do it at one go. Otherwise, he was such an important person in the film. Yeah. And I was like losing him all the time. So that can happen. That can happen. So you have to really work. Actually, also the people who are working with you have to understand. And when you have people who have economic hardships, whose lives are precarious, so precarious. Like my phone number hasn't. See, I'm also middle class person. I'm not some rich privileged person, but my number hasn't changed since 2000, since I got it. But 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 working class people, their phone numbers will keep on changing, because you never know from a day to another what the life has in hold for them. And the precariousness of the lives I already knew from you could not take one day for granted. Whatever is today, you cannot tell what's going to happen tomorrow and how the fate is going to change, because there is absolutely no security in their lives. And that's the important thing to understand. So in that sense, you also have to work with your protagonists in that way, understanding this reality, the precarious reality.
So I just had another small question relating to this. Uh, was there any person or a character who you shot and you thought would make an interesting feature of your film, but whose story did not make it to the final cut, which we have seen? Any story which we did not get to see?
I'm sure, I don't remember now. This is a 2009 film. But I must say, I don't do coverage in films. I do very specific shooting. I decide and then I do it. I I work with very little, ratio. I kind of go for it. So I don't have I don't have hundreds and thousands of hours. Like this film maybe just 16 hours of footage or something, or even less. Most of my films have very little, don't have much ratio, because I think about what I'm trying to do, how will it fit in. So that arc, that has to be very much made conscious. I mean, you have to keep on working on that. So I don't have too much that I work with. I don't know if that's good or bad. Yeah, I mean, also these are all low budget films. The budgets are very low to be able to hire a crew. वो सब भी है. Up to now, I shoot myself sometimes. So, then you can land up doing some kind of little more coverage. You can get more things. Like even in Lakshmi and Me, I started shooting, then I had. But once you bring in like a crew every time, it's just expensive, and it's you have to it becomes a very different kind of. If you're shooting alone, and you're not paying for every shoot, I think you can have much more uh, coverage, I would call it. But I still feel like in olden days they used to have very little footage and you had to work like that, so therefore you had to put a lot of thinking in terms of the structure and why you're shooting with someone. So that exercise really helps not to overshoot it, not to see it in some kind. Sometimes films of obviously emerge on the editing table, but see that it has a part in it. And if it's totally like you feel it's not going to work, I don't even I we really don't shoot that way. So I don't remember any character that didn't work out in this film. Maybe not much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let me just invite Mr. Killy.
Morning to all of you.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for this wonderful film that captures the social life of the unaccounted people, as you referred already. It actually captures not only the emotions of the socially marginalized people, but also it reflects the social insecurity of the middle class people, indirectly and implicitly. I mean, by the way they reacted to your film, by the way they close their doors and respond to the various individuals they meet every day to, in fact, serve their interests and serve their activities. But there's a screen, social screen between those two individuals. That is what your movie is actually bringing about. That's what I felt when I saw the movie. The emotions of the people had been captured brilliantly. The the boy who comes in the lift always wants to look at the camera with a smile. I mean, with a smile, it's an innocent smile, but he wants to get highlighted. And when he gets out of the lift, he says, "You'll walk in front or behind," because he wants to be in front of the camera. So he keeps on turning back to face the camera. That's not a simple fact. I mean, that reflects that they are being sidelined. He wants to get highlighted. Somebody's capturing my face. He's not able to get out of that surprise and shock. That is the real scenario that is existing in today's contemporary society in almost all the cities. I feel, even whether it be Chennai or whether it be Hyderabad, or the more and more urbanization is bringing a large gap between a divide between the rich and the poor, and the social insecurity is reflecting more in terms with the middle class and the economic security with the poor. So it brings both these aspects, but it brings it indirectly from the faces of the individuals who have been socially marginalized. So I find that way this film is very significant. It is actually, as you said, it actually mirrors, it actually gives the mirror image of your own self, how you react to the individual from a different social or different economic strata. So in that way, your film will remain significant as the decades go by too, because it's going to increase more and more as more modernization and more industrialization is going to happen. So I really appreciate this film, though I am not from a film background, so I can't talk about the technicalities of the film, but I could actually capture this much with your film. And thank you very much for this film to bringing it to the public realm, to highlight these people who are actually a kind of bridge between the other strata and the society in large. And it also brings how the division of labor is being used and how they're being exploited. At one end, you also brings in a very few minutes of this woman talking about the rights, legal rights, which they should be aware of, conscious of, and to make them be aware of they're being exploited, or they're being kind of not given the rights that they are actually meant for. So that aspect is very important in that film, I think, to make somebody conscious and aware of their social being in the entire society. Thank you very much for the film. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your comments, Killy. And I for me, the film, the beginning of the film and the relationship that the camera establishes with the boy is such an amazing start, and it tells you a lot right there in that one shot as to what's going to happen. So thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you. Can I invite Mr. Sudhir? Sudhir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
On the whole, I think it's one of the most remarkable films that documentary films that I've seen in the recent past. Though it is 11 years old, I mean, I think it lays bare very very clearly I mean, I don't see these as parallel worlds as the introduction. How do you say? Or how, and the way in which the film was introduced, in its text, yeah. But that the precarity that you associate with, I mean, tracking Dayanand, in terms of the reasons behind why he had to change his jobs and stuff like that. I think that precarity and the world we're talking about is a single world. It's the same reality that both classes inhabit. Right? So, I mean, to take off from what Milind, the question that Milind asked, and then the comments that you were making to a previous question about the difficulties you had in securing the consent of your fellow, flat dwellers, yeah, in shooting this film. I think it's very, very telling, you see, that how do you say, it's the bourgeois middle class who are the bedrock of you see, capital, right? And I think how do you say, it's very clear. I mean, like Kelly mentioned, their insecurity, yeah, about you see, having this world portrayed or deconstructed, you see, through the lives of through following the lives of the people who work for them, right? And I think you could perhaps read in this film, yeah, the seeds of you see, the leanings and the moves to the right, yeah, that we are experiencing, you see, very, very sharply in the last you see, several years. I think in another discussion, I mean, Hindus, Ram had mentioned a reading from a book, yeah, I'm forgetting the author, who had talked about how centrist positions, yeah, tend to move towards the right historically, right? And this mix of you see, the support for capital, yeah, the ways in which how do you say, typically including the organized left, like you mentioned, you see, including the organized left, yeah, many, I mean, how do you say, organized parties on the left, you see, are from the middle class, yeah, and you can very clearly see how that I mean, accounts for the you see, the ways in which not only are they, how do you say, effective you see, controls on any revolutionary you see upsurge, yeah, but they're also in some way tacitly supporting leanings to the right, you see. And I think I mean, this film, I think it could be read in that fashion, yeah, because again, I mean, I think what we're talking about are not different worlds, they're not parallel worlds. There's only one world, right? And the lives of you see, Dayanand or Somu and you see, Ravi Ramesh, yeah, all of them, they turn the mirror so effectively, you see, on these lives, yeah. I mean, there couldn't be a more brilliant analysis, you see. Especially the I think the scene where you had I'm forgetting the character who was reading from you see, a text, yeah, about
Sonu.
Yeah, yeah, about you see, how I mean, the lack of initiative, or the fact that they were malnourished, and therefore with a lot of health issues, you see, that was the reason for poverty, right? Because they couldn't work you see, efficiently enough, yeah. Whereas I mean, it's I mean, you can see very, I mean, and then the next sentence says there are 14 billionaires or whatever very rich people in India who own most of the wealth in the country, right? It's such a contradictory mix of messages which is coming across, but very clearly, you see, it puts the onus of you see, the problems that you see, the marginalized have to go through every day, yeah, on their own shoulders, you see. It's as if they are poor because they are illiterate, yeah. That's another you see, message which is,
I just want to just tell you, you know, what he's reading. He's studying, right?
Yeah, correct, for
he's
example.
studying, and that's a guidebook.
Okay, yeah.
So it was so interesting that he's actually he was, you know, by rote, you know, reading this every day, like by heart. He was by heart.
I can imagine.
And I was like, do you realize what this is? So let's, you know, so that was so significant.
Yeah. And if I remember rightly, Sonu was the only one who, I mean, had some positive slant on his position, you see. Saying that, I mean, money is the most important thing, and if you don't have money, what can you, I mean, what is life? And therefore, his work in Bombay gives him, you see, gives his life meaning, you see. I think Dayanand, you see, was a remarkable find, you see. the poetry that
He's a
the
Devdas
first
character, no? In some.
the first lines about his village, were there his lines?
Yeah, totally his lines.
Okay.
That's a poem I'd heard him. That's how I found him.
I see. Okay.
Once in the night when I was entering into my society, he was reading out this poem to his fellow watchmen. And I said, oh, where is the sound coming from? And then I said, okay, read it out to me. That's how I discovered him.
I see. Okay. This is remarkable. He's a gem of a person. Yeah. And with remarkable courage, you see, to be able to, talk about, I think, I'm not sure whether the experiences he related in his autobiography or the screenplay that was made of it. Yeah. About going to jail. Yeah.
It's all his life. Yeah.
His own experiences, right? Similarly, the fact when he's you see, arrested for theft, you see, accused by a fellow worker of having stolen 12,000 rupees. Yeah. All of that, I mean, remarkable courage to be able to bring those, you see, incidents, you see, into the open. Yeah. And but it's extremely tragic to see his you see view of himself. Yeah. And the fact that he's talking about a lack of self-worth. Yeah. And he's unable to even you see converse with his wife, you see, across this distance. Yeah. For 15 months. Yeah. And he's not able to converse with his wife because of his you see, of his view of himself and his imagined failings, where you see, in fact, he's actually such a how do you say, such a brilliant human being. Yeah. I'm not sure whether you see you refer to the reasons why his position was you see probably very, very even more precarious than the other workers that you followed, right? Whether he was doing something wrong.
No, I don't know. Maybe why he lost his job, I never got a sense.
Yeah. Correct. He doesn't talk about that. He only says that he found out that he had lost his job when you see. But I mean, whatever the reasons, yeah, whatever the reasons, I can certainly empathize with you see, with the person who's having these kind of dreams, yeah, of being able to in somehow you see live respectably, right, and to claim dignity for himself in the eyes of others, you see. And I think I mean, even if he were making compromises in what he was telling you and what he was not telling you, right, I think one would have to travel with those travel with those compromises, because I mean it's I think a function of the world that we have built, right? Yeah. So I congratulate you, Nishtha. I mean,
thank you so much. I think it's such an interesting reading of the film, and I feel that, for example, it is so important to have Sonu on one hand and have Ghayal on the other hand, because Ghayal was also like a teacher in school. So, you know, he's also like comes from a Brahmin, Dayanand Mishra. So there is, I think his being a watchman and having a sense of himself as a teacher, but impoverished, having to come, you know, to Bombay to work. There's a very different journey there, you know, of the sense of self. And with Sonu, it's a different journey. So I think it's so important to have, you know, these two people in the film, because one of their age, one of the expectations, one of the whole sense of, you know, loss of masculinity in a way with Ghayal, like, you know, and also with Ravi in the sense of shame. And the shame, Mani, we should be shameful, not them, you know. I mean, and it's so interesting. He says that he's not feeling shame because of his work. He's feeling shame that he cannot take care of his family. So he's not saying that this work is shameful. And that I feel is such an important point. And
very
there
true.
is such a sense of dignity and self-respect each one of the characters have. So they're not defined by like the caste or the that work, and so like the level, the status, like how the middle class does it, but in terms of their ability to be able to fend for their family. And I think that I mean, Ghayal just says it. I just feel like um, really, I mean, I cry every time that when I see him say that, that sense of loss of self, because he's not able to fend. And that's what it is. And shame is coming from there.
Yeah. On the other hand, I think Ravi was very dignified.
Very dignified.
Very dignified. Yeah. Despite the fact that he was hauling garbage, you see, like you said, what for him was, it was problematic was the fact that he couldn't take care of his family. Yeah. And I think, you see, at that very young age, having worked for 12 years from 11 onwards to 23, you see, he could lay bare the structure of this, system by simply comparing the fact. No, he asked you the question, you see, would you be able to manage your house, you see, if you had 2,000 rupees from 3 people working, right, a month? And I think, I mean, that exposes the entire way in which you see this system is organized. Yeah, I think he was extremely, sharp in that sense at that age.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, can I invite Ramdas, please?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, it's very interesting film. I really like the treatment because, as you said in the beginning, I mean, all these are materials only. So, what you are going to communicate and how truthful or how sincere you are to the subject is most important. So, I really like the treatment part and the way which you, because almost that many people are coming either Delhi or Bombay or whatever.
Ramdas, one sec. Ramdas,
Yeah.
you have to keep the camera horizontal, I think.
Okay. Okay now?
No.
No, it's okay. Let's continue.
Okay, let's stop.
Give us.
Hi, yeah. So what I was, what I was telling that it's very important that it's a dream city for many.
Sorry, I can't see you. Can you put on the camera? Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Fine. Yeah, that's what I supposed to say, that it's a dream city for many. So the way which you portrayed the film, like people are coming with dream and how they are going to achieve, and whoever lived in such housing societies or housing colonies, we know that it's some of the dirtiest place we have to live, because almost all the attitude of these the middle class people towards the workmen or the women who are working in the housing colonies are very because always they are keeping such an attitude. And very recently we have seen a very big incident, like when the lockdown happened in this, all these migrant workers who are the domestic labor, who were doing the domestic labors, were being affected mostly because all these middle class men or women or who are the family left them without anything and they were walking distances. So in the present aspect, it is after 11 years or after 12 years of making, see, still the film is very relevant. And one thing is also important, that there are many stories to say in your doorstep, even as the name means. There are many things to say. Still, there are many things to explore in your doorstep. So it's very important film. And one more thing, this is more about the dreams and exploitation. But one aspect also can be included, or I don't know whether it's right or not, because it's ultimately your way of approach the film only. But there are a lot of violence also towards these domestic labors. But that aspect, it's not. I'm not telling that it's missing. There are incidents or which is connecting many things. But it's also a major thing, because I remember one incident that happened in Delhi. Where I stayed in Delhi for years. So a newspaper story came that a family left. The maid and their family was there in the house. The family, the middle class family, left for a vacation by locking this female servant in their home. So there are a lot of domestic violence also happening. So one of the big area we have to explore. I think it's also very important. And the second thing in your film, what I read that a lot of night shots are there. Like I mean, even the film ends also in a very big, very beautiful portrait. So that's also, so it as it is happened, or I mean, is there be a relevance on bringing that night into your film mostly? So I didn't watch any of your previous films or the later films. Definitely, I wanted to watch the film, but this film, my treatment and the sincerity, what you kept, you I mean, maintain for the subject is very, very interesting, and it's very relevant too. Congratulations for the film. Thank you for screening this film also. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to add that, like in both the films, Lakshmi and Me and At My Doorstep, I didn't want to talk about overt violence because everybody reacts to overt violence, but there is a covert violence that happens in everyday activity. Like it's also, this boy goes to the door and delivers something, and the person says, "Come back later. I will give it to you. I'll give the money later." It is it is not respecting that this boy's time, that person's labor. This is also the kind of everyday violence, the banality of violence that we live through. And I think that is what the film is about. Well, the bigger violence we all talk about, they become headlines. And then we live with this everyday violence, in how we treat people around us. So the film is really about that. This and Lakshmi and Me. Of course, we know that domestic workers are raped, they are beaten, they are abused. Everybody knows about that. But what do all of us do also who do not rape, abuse, and who also pay well? Like even I'm talking about that. I'm talking about the things that we don't see. Like I'm talking about gestures. I'm talking about just unawareness of our different the power situation that we exercise.
And regarding the night shots?
Night shots, I mean, I shot with Ghayal always in the night. So he was a night watchman. He would come in the night. The poetry was in the night. And so I just kept with that theme, of a lot of people are just like awake through the night, right? While we are sleeping, somebody's awake. And for me, he was a night watchman, and Sonu, who's the day watchman, always going to see somebody is there to see ki pani bhar gaya, the tank should not overflow. So I divided it in that way, like the night watchman and the day watchman. The jobs are also divided in that sense.
Very interesting film. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think I've covered everybody. RM is okay. Pushpa joined this. Pushpa, can I invite Pushpa, please?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you. And sorry for joining late. I'm glad that after missing so many weeks, I'm back here. And of course.
Pushpa, we can't see you. Love to see.
Yeah. I'll turn on my video. I usually don't because I use the camera a lot, so I don't particularly like to focus it on myself. Okay. I been a journalist for some time, so obviously photography, but photographing others is my forte, not myself. So anyway, yeah. So like everybody said, it's almost like a timeless, ageless documentary, and done with lots of courage and sensitivity, because one is, you actually live there, or so it isn't fun. Many of us know what these places are like, and also in some way, much as you may not admit it, somebody would be even judging you, oh, so she's part of, or Nishtha is part of the Great. And the people, all the unpaid, I mean, I hate to call them unorganized because some of them are much more organized than many of us, actually. So workers are people who I've written about for so many years. Okay. And like you found, a poet and a teacher, uh, I've encountered such people too. And very often, yes, they take pride in their work because often it's about their survival, their family survival, and someone else and for many of them, going to, even if it's technically in India or it's an Indo-Nepal border, many times like I'm in Bangalore, many of our cities are nowadays have workers from those parts of the country, sometimes even Assam. Okay, so even one-way travel for them is not only expensive monetarily, but also days. It takes 3 to 4 days. उस गांव के जाना है, उधर से बस लेना है, उधर से गाड़ी, and that गाड़ी is often undefined. So it is tough portraying them and then with them, because like that, I think the newspaper delivery chap or he says no, sorry, the one who takes for the laundry, he says na ye kahin aayega nahi na, kab kahin dikhayenge nahi na. That often happens with many of them. Like, obviously, many of them ask if you've known them or observed them for a while, maybe otherwise, also sometimes they'll be like, why are you asking this? Why? And then some of them can get a little upset because they'll be like, our lives have become your story, okay, but we are human. So I like how, you've tried hard to portray even that, okay. And thanks so much for the screening. Of course, Amudhan, you're doing this for like weeks tirelessly. Well, you've been doing film festivals for 21 years tirelessly. So and Nishtha, I've heard of your other films. I've read reviews, but I think this is your first work that I'm actually seeing. So very relatable, very necessary, and very real. Thanks for all that. And also the potential. I remember with a cinematographer friend, we were talking to Paurakarmikas, we call them in Bangalore, Safai Karmacharis, but these are not the drain cleaners. These are the ones who clean the public spaces, roads and all that. We find lots of potential in them, and sometimes, yeah, we had one Dubeji in one of the previous apartments. He was from Motihari, incidentally, the place where, the author of 1984 was born. And he was a teacher there. So he was very planned about his life, I know. But I think I would sort of dedicate some part of this to him because we've kind of lost touch with him. We've moved houses and he's apparently returned. So, but yeah, and that Dubey ji used to keep telling us, "मैं BA pass हूँ, मैं पढ़ा था, लेकिन क्या फायदा? Like, I won't get a proper job there. It won't pay well, So yeah, and these are some of the harsh realities. And hopefully this doesn't happen in your society because we also know many times they have different staircases for them. Sometimes many of them are not allowed in the lifts that the other residents use. So much of casteism and apart from class, and also many of these societies are, societies within societies are discriminatory. They don't allow even Muslims to go. So yeah, I think you've portrayed as much as possible. So,
this kind of discrimination happens in my present society. It didn't happen in that society.
Oh, okay.
And I've tried to fight against it, and have been penalized also because they put up this sticker saying this lift can only be used by workers and the other one should not be, can be only residents. And I used to go around peeling those stickers, and then they caught it on the camera and they penalized me. but we are very much living, I mean, maybe people are slightly
Right.
better paid, people are slightly more sensitive here, but then they will come and actually fight with you and argue with you why they feel that the two different lifts are necessary.
Mm.
Why? Because little girls are going to school and coming back, and they can be sexually harassed by these working class, as if their own people cannot sexually harass.
Correct. Yeah.
So many different ways that a working class person is seen as a potential thief, as a potential rapist. I mean, this just plays out again and again and again.
True. Yeah. I know many who do this brave fight and then get further penalized because of the people, and then or for instance, that lady was asking that the boy, the young man, Ravi, I right his name is,
Yeah.
about she just presumes how much he gets, that he is kind of and then he made a very fundamental statement. See, it's so heavy for me to carry, and she still doesn't bother so much about that. She's like, "Are chokra rakh lo." And so, and such things, right? And then how much we would grudge them. I'm not saying I'm free of any of these things. I mean, sometimes unwantedly, yes, many of maybe I would be quite the speaker or activist writer sometimes, but I don't know how many times I would have discriminated knowingly, unknowingly, unintentionally. Sometimes it's so part of our lives, right? Who can go where. Yeah. And many times these people are separated from their families, not only because, it's expensive to think. Sometimes they don't have space. They can't afford the space. Like in smaller buildings, some people, they just do not provide even a washroom for them. They don't provide a proper room with a roof. And, the if they have a small family, a young family, and say babies or something whom they can't leave behind, your bacha is screaming and then disturbing, or otherwise not letting their children play together. There's no end to. Right.
I just wanted to respond to something you said about like that boy, the laundry boy, who says that आप ये बाहर तो नहीं दिखाएंगे. So I asked him. I said, because we had taken permission before shooting, so I said बाहर मतलब बाहर किधर? And then he said, as long as it's a city, I don't mind. But I hope this video is not going to reach the village, because he doesn't want his parents, his family to see him doing this, like he said, donkey's work.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a sense of like he doesn't want, because God knows what he's told his parents, that what he's come to, what he's doing in the city, what is that nature of work. But he would definitely don't want his parents to see him that way. So that was another very interesting insight.
Yeah, true. I mean, I've been asked this like a million times every time I go to write, whether it's about a place where some incident has happened, or simply like, because sometimes when you go to the unions and members to write, sometimes you don't get certain things out. So sometimes it's better to talk with just the people, you see daily.
Right.
And then, like I said, now what probably you've done with the camera, I've done a lot more with text.
Right.
And they often ask this, and that too, and I also work very closely with trans people. So there for us, not just about consent, about whom to show, what to write, is so fundamental, because they don't want somebody they know to see it or to know about their realities.
Right.
So yeah, it is, and it is so important. That's why I think it's good that they trusted you, perhaps because that you have that rapport with them, or you've built that trust with them, right? Because many times we can't get these
you
stories
can't,
or these facts
you
out
just
without.
skyrocket into some place you cannot
Yeah.
do it. This is a lived experience. These are the people that I've
Sure.
known.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
only then can you start. Like I often get asked this question. So how do you do it? Like, I said, I don't know. First of all, I don't feel that wall. I have not created that wall between me and them. So I don't see that
Mm-hmm.
wall because I didn't create it first,
Yeah,
begin with.
yeah.
I didn't see a wall. And the other thing is I've known these people.
Right,
And
right, right.
so that makes all the difference. That
True,
but
true.
otherwise, if
Oh,
you've always
absolutely. Yeah.
lived a very, protected middle class life, you've never, been out and talked to
Yeah.
people, and then you suddenly appear with a camera, it's going to be very difficult. I just wanted to answer one question I saw in the chat. People said, did you ever
Sure.
show it in the housing society? And this is so interesting because so I moved out from that house. This film got made in 2009, and I had already moved out from that housing society into another one. And I wanted to show the film here in this housing society, and I tried for several years. And they have a clubhouse here, and they have these birthday programs. They have all kinds of programs, very loud. But whenever I said I want to show my film and it is about housing society, they said no, 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 it'll be too loud. It'll be too loud, and it'll disturb the society. They never, because I showed the film to the secretary here in this society. And when he saw what the film is about, he always said, no, 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 we can't have an open air screening here. We cannot have it in the clubhouse. It will be too noisy. They just didn't allow me to show the film here. And that's very interesting because it is revelatory of them to be able to show, and it is really has to be shown in housing society. So I still keep on trying.
Trying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Pushpa. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Can I invite Mr. Gangadharan, who actually with whom we started the beginning?
I know Ganga has taken his sweet time.
Mr.
Can't hear
Gangadharan.
you. Unmute.
Yeah, yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Louder.
Actually, Nishtha, the advantage of having come in early and had you and I chat was you mentioned that you felt kind of left out of the lockdown effect that happened here, basically the migration. And your film is about people who would have actually migrated. So you made the invisible visible with your film. But actually, every single person who employs such people, to them, all of them became visible when they disappeared. Either they went back in terms of migration, or they were not allowed to come into the society. Okay, where they had to do all the chores themselves. Now, if this is a hypothetical question, in case you had to, or you thought about making this film today, how different would have been your approach to this film?
Very good question. I haven't pondered over it, but I just want to. I mean, it's something that I'll have to think about. But I was thinking about it in the sense that people were thinking of making short films about COVID, and I was thinking this is very interesting because when I came back, so the first thing, you ring your laundry guy. So first, all the people like the plumber, the laundry, they're all gone, except some of them are still there. But for example, the laundry guy told me his story that he had to stop working. उसने सब्जी का ठेला लगा लिया. Started selling vegetables, or he's going to maybe start ironing again. But like this, all the numbers, like the courier guy, he doesn't pick up his phone anymore. So I thought I'll just do like a small film about calling up, like just the phone, and you say courier, and you say G2 laundry, and all these people's their lives have, they're not there anymore, or they're not doing the job. The job itself has changed. So I sort of missed that moment because I came back late, back to India. But while I was there, it would have been very interesting just to have these kind of, see, be in touch with these people and see that's what I would have done, or right now how their lives have changed. So I keep on trying the numbers that maybe, things are now returning back to normal. That, maybe the numbers will start or something like that. So, but yeah, a lot of lives have just changed forever.
Yeah.
They've changed forever. They've gone. So, but I should think about what.
Yeah, it will be a nice epilogue kind of thing for your film.
Right, right. So, Ganga, I've been making my third, like what I call it, the trilogy, the worker trilogy. And that's about industrial workers in Calcutta. So, a lot of people just left. They could not afford to be there. And while Modi had asked people, to ask the corporates to pay their workers, nobody did. Nobody did. And in fact, what is very interesting in this period is that a lot of individuals kept on paying the domestic workers. For example, Sujata, who comes to work at my place. This was the main job. Like over the years, she just stopped doing all the other jobs. Mine was the only job that was left. So that was the only income that was coming to her home, and that whatever small income, because husband worked in a factory, that factory closed down, the corporate didn't pay. Then the boy worked in a shop, obviously the shopkeeper didn't pay. The you know and the girl lost her job. She used to do a job, but it was through phone, and phone kharab ho gaya. She couldn't get it repaired during that time, so she lost her job. So Sujata, actually, she was just in that period, and I was only relying on my salary, which is not such a huge salary, a family of four. And thank God for the rations they were getting. But my salary only took care of her rent. So, what I'm saying is that in a way, during this period, actually a lot of, and the credit really goes, a lot of employers of domestic workers were the only people who paid, but the factories and corporates who actually have much more money did not at all help out the workers. They just promised and did not help out the workers.
Particularly the building industry, they just shut shop and didn't pay the previous month's salary.
Right.
Or most of the, maybe 60% of the workers who went back were construction workers, particularly in Bombay. I'm talking about
Right.
Bombay.
Right.
They just shut shop without any warning.
Right. And yesterday I was watching a really beautiful Iranian film, and there was this dialogue that really stuck to me. Sudhir, you'll really like the dialogue. And it said, "Oh, the owner is always broke. The owner has so many difficulties. The owner is always broke. They never have enough money to pay the workers. They're always broke." And that was a story even in America. So the $1 trillion, aid, most of it went to corporates. Most of it went to all the big corporates, right? And $1,200 went to individuals under a certain, like 100. They didn't have 100,000, salary. I mean, pay. So I'm just saying, because the rich people are always broke, right? But I feel that, I think a lot of people showed heart. We should also talk about it. If this time, especially a lot of owners, because of their relationship with the domestic workers, which are usually women, I think they were the ones bringing their salaries, and not all of them were so generous, but a lot of people were generous. And things have changed. I feel like the film that I made in 2009, it's also post that the salaries of people were much better, much better. There has been awareness, more or less, but also inflation. So their lives are as difficult, but I think there is a small change. I would say that people then were totally unaware. People are just slightly more aware now. I feel in Bombay, not so much in Delhi, but individuals. So therefore, I feel like films like Lakshmi and Me and At My Doorstep should really be shown, because there's a Lakshmi in every home, and there is a Ghayal, there are Sonu, everybody. It's the universal story. It's a universal story, really.
This
Thank you.
actually brings me, is there time for one more quick question?
Yes, please go ahead.
It is about Nishtha's next film. See, the first two films I'm talking about in the trilogy were individual stories. I mean, they were people known to you. Okay, whereas in terms of trilogy, because it is about workers, it is the third film. But is there a personal connect in that film at all? The way
Yeah, I mean,
the
I
way
think I think yeah, of course there is. I mean, we are looking at workers as a collective, their issues as a collective. We are looking at it's a much more a sensory project.
Yeah.
I'm also looking at sensory deprivation that happens in industrial capitalism. So it's really about working conditions, but by working conditions, I don't mean just wages. It's also the conditions that we work in, and what it does to our ability to think rationally, to make decisions for ourselves. And I feel, I wrote something on Facebook today. I mean, in a way, I feel that the the poor person and the rich person work as a team. The poor people work to make the rich richer, and the richer work to make the poor poorer, and they work as a team. And both of their sensibilities, I mean, poor people, because they can't help it, their sensibilities and their senses are affected, but also the rich, they don't have senses and sensibility. I feel in that sense, they and it's really, sometimes I feel it's who are out of that industry. I mean, everybody is part of that industrial capitalism in terms of being a consumer, but they directly so really I mean, it's unfortunate, but I'm looking at that. I'm looking at how people are forced to really underwrite their own misery. You can't help it. It's a vicious circle. So that film is sort of opening this out into into the world of factories, bigger scale, but definitely has my own touch. I mean, I cannot make a film without making that personal connection with people. So it is coming out of that personal connection.
Okay.
Maybe I was a jute worker in my past life or something. because I don't know why I've been pursuing that film for so long. I've been trying to do it for 4 or 5 years. It's a very difficult film. So must be some connection somewhere.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gangadharan. I think we have Jinender. Jinender.
That's my father. Daddy, please show your face.
Mr. Jinender, please come. We want to hear you.
Daddy? Daddy? Are you okay?
He's quietly watching us.
He's being shy.
Okay.
But Usha is here.
Yeah, Usha just joined. Can Usha just join? Can we invite Usha?
Yeah, I don't know. Usha, are you there? No, I don't know.
Bharti left Nishtha. Bharti.
I'm here. Hi.
Yes.
Nice
Bharti?
to see all of you.
Acha, Usha?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, camera लगाओ ना, even I want to see.
नहीं, मेरा तो हाल इतना बुरा है, आपको डार्क ग्लासेस पहनना पड़ेगा. So, no, another time surely.
Okay.
But about this jute, also it is quite a interesting thing because at one point jute was considered the kind of symbol of industrialization and at sort of the heart of the opening up of industrial capitalism, as it were.
Absolutely.
Especially when it took off in Bengal. So it was a prime industry. And there's actually one very interesting Supreme Court case where there was this battle between, it was a cement case. So that is one idea. The other thing is also it has got so intimately connected with a certain kind of artisanalship, which distinguishes it from other kinds of materials and other kinds of processes of work.
Right.
So it's a very evocative subject. And
Yeah.
it's a very emotional subject also.
Yeah. I as yet haven't covered the artisanal part of it because I'm working. I've been shooting in the factories. But I definitely want to do that. Maybe as part of my last shoot, because you're so right. And I would like to hear about this case that you're talking about.
Yeah, this was a case from the early 90s. It was a Supreme Court case with ACC Cement, which, as you know, is one of the, I don't know if I recall if it's ACC, and I can send you the citation later.
Okay, that's very
The entire argument, and this was heard before the first Dalit judge in Supreme Court, Justice Ramaswamy, on whom I did a research paper. So the case was very simple. Uh, the cement factory wanted to use poly bags. And so the jute workers had filed a case saying that you need to use jute. And the entire case was the Supreme Court judge, actually, in his judgment, sort of glorifies the he makes an argument for jute, actually, about how it's linked to livelihoods.
Wow.
And how it sort of is at the heart of the Kisan. Actually, I can send you that citation, and
That'll
I
be
can send you
great.
my commentary on it also, my
That'll be great.
analysis of the judgment. So, and and also just going yeah so yeah sorry, I didn't want to say more than that, just to say that it is extremely evocative of many things, as a jute as a substance, as an
Yeah.
object, as a something
Yeah.
that is so closely linked to our entry into mercantilism, into
Right.
then
Right.
industrial capitalism. And
Right. Yeah. So I've been difficult film because on one hand you have the fiber, then you have capitalism, and then the lives of the people. So it's like trying to weave
literally,
various stories
yeah,
is a creative challenge of the film. So that's what we are
yeah, and also
dealing with. And in a world where everybody says, what's the story, what's the story? Story, unfortunately, is complicated, and you want to actually complicate it, and sort of bring more layer to it instead of telling a simple story, and give history. There is history to the workers, there is history to the industry.
right.
So how do you bring it out? uh, you know in what sort of a way do you bring it out, so that just a little more complicated story. So it's not just, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened,
That's right.
sort of a thing. And so much is in always, Usha, it's so interesting that you say that, because so much is in how a film is read, and how the viewers also participate. They bring in so much to a film.
Yes, that's
I
right.
can almost imagine you watching the film and giving your own layers to it. And it's so important to give those moments in the film for the viewer to be able to do that,
Yes,
to
yes,
while think, while make connections, to be to
yeah,
feel, to think, to make connections, to provide that space in the film, in the duration of the film. That's the
yeah.
struggle, that's the creative challenge.
And that's what art is about, actually.
It's
You
fun.
give space to, yeah. And also, the interesting thing is, if you think of jute as the sort of receptacle of commodities,
Right.
and it's a deep connection with paddy.
Yeah.
And then what happens to the gunny bag? It's worn on people who work in the paddy fields, on their heads. I mean,
Right.
it's such a beautiful subject. It's such a
Absolutely.
lovely and such a, yeah, wonderful. And I like your title a lot. So I don't know
The,
if you're still sticking
now
with it.
I'm changing it to just jute
Okay.
instead of the golden thread. But I don't know, a lot of people like golden thread. I like jute because of its minimalist, and it's also bringing jute into, it's like giving it the fiber. It's like a Dalit fiber, right? Amongst fibers is the Dalit fiber. So it's also
Now,
just saying jute, like I want to say it. So I'm
yeah,
still working with those two ideas.
yeah.
But I have a very interesting Bengali title because in Bengal, jute is called part, and then you have patkatha, and then I'm calling it in Bengali part katha.
Oh, that's
So
very
patkatha is a script. And it's very interesting that also jute industry comes at the same time as the photography industry. Like
wow.
the invention is at the same time. The invention of jute and invention of a camera, and there. So it's very interesting. So I wanted, I in Bengali I have a nice title, but English and all, because of the language, other languages I'm not. So I think maybe it'll be just jute. Let's see.
Which is cool also, which is like you say it as it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Very interesting to hear about the
Nishtha,
next film.
Nishtha,
Yeah.
I have a suggestion. Pat se lege, Patachitra. That is a folk art form also, and it is the chitra of Pat.
Yeah. Part chitra.
Ah, yeah, Pat chitra.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we have almost reached to 1 o'clock. Nishtha, you were surprised when I told you about the
I know,
time.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Longer
So,
than the film.
yes. So I think that, if others do not have any comments, I think we can wind up.
I just want to thank you all for so much, sharing your comments, and yeah, it means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
So let me formally thank Nishtha and all the audience members for taking part in the discussion. The film will be on till tomorrow evening 6 o'clock. Kindly share and inform others that so that more people watch the film. Thank you very much.
thanks.
And
Thanks.
one more slight announcement. We will be doing we won't be doing next week film screening. Instead, we will be doing our annual film festival. So it will be our 22nd edition. So 22nd Madurai Documentary and Short Film Festival. It will be held on 6th to 10th of December, online completely except one venue in Madurai. So see you next week by 6 o'clock, by 6th December.
Thank you,
you.
Amudhan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Nice seeing you, Ganga.
Bye,
Nice seeing you too, Nishtha.
And Daddy, bye. Bye, Usha.
Bye.
My daddy is not turning up, but yeah, okay. Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you, Kili. Bye.
Amudan Marupakkam Parkalam.
Parkalam, Marupakkam Parkalam. Bye. See you. Thank you very much.
I'm done.
Bye, Usha.
Bye, Nishtha. All the best for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.